What's going on? Travis Eldridge and Tom Eschen with you to talk about the big news this week. The NCAA's Division I Council voting on Monday to allow all spring sport athletes the option of an extra year of eligibility. And Tom, on the surface, this looks like it's the right thing to do for the NCAA. However, when it comes to conferences and schools, there are going to be a lot of intricacies that people are going to pick out because there are going to be a lot of issues that come up and things that are complicated that are going to have to be solved.
Yeah, I think you put it well, Travis. It's going to be complicated for a lot of these individual athletes, coaches, programs, and administrations, just on making this decision because there's a lot of different moving parts here. And the NCAA sort of said, well, it's going to have to be sort of a case-by-case basis thing, which you sort of thought that's might it would be because a lot of these kids have different priorities, whether that comes to grad school or what they're going to just do after college, or that's being on the field once again. So I think that while it's great to have the option, it's going to be interesting and it's going to be complicated and see what each program, each coach, each athlete decides to do here.
Yeah, and so when it comes down to it, the one thing that sticks out to me about the NCAA's release is the scholarship money. So if you are a current college senior who decides they want to come back, and this past year you had a half a scholarship in lacrosse, it's not guaranteed that the school has to give you that half a scholarship here next year. Now, that half a scholarship would not count against the normal limit in Division I lacrosse for men, which is 12.6. But that is then becomes a school, student athlete, and coach issue that they have to figure out. Can we finance an extra 2 or 3 scholarships for seniors who want to come back? And that will go over the limit we already had set for next year. Some schools, like Ohio State, have come out and said, hey, you know what? We're going to guarantee the same scholarship money for everybody that wants to come back from this past year and wants to come back another year. We're going to give it to you. But that's not going to be the case in every school because Ohio State is a much bigger institution than some of the other smaller schools and smaller conferences that won't be able to do the same thing.
Yeah, and then you think of on the other end on what these rosters are going to look like, and some of these high school seniors who I feel badly for. I mean, I talked to Tracy Wiener a couple weeks ago about this, and the juniors obviously are impacted as this is their big recruiting year. But for the seniors, I mean, you lose that senior season, that state championship run with the people you grew up playing with, as kids even, and you sort of lose that. If obviously things don't go. I mean, some districts and some states have said, we're going to try playing in May, but you're losing most of that senior season, which is tough. And then you look at what's going to happen after that when these kids who are committed to different schools now are walking into a situation that they didn't think they were going to be in, whether that be seniors coming back in taking up spots on the depth chart, and you have to challenge yourself even more. Of course, as an athlete, you're going to embrace that challenge, but I think it's something that you definitely aren't dealt the best hand of cards and the one you thought you were getting dealt at that point. So I think it's going to be interesting to see if there's any rulings on transferring, or not transferring, but committing or decommitting, maybe to some different programs. But at the same time, so many moving parts at the top of that with the college seniors that it's weird to say when those high school seniors can make that decision.
Well, and I think you lead into an interesting point. I was talking with Jamie Monroe about this, and he had spoken to UVA coach Lars Tiffany, and he said some of his top recruits who are current high school seniors have now decided they're going to do a post-grad year, and they're going to step away knowing that they've got a very talented senior class. I'm guessing they expect a lot of those guys to come back for UVA for another year. So we're going to give that class time to leave, and then I'm going to come into the college game, which then has to trickle down into the class of 2021 and the class of 2022. So this is not just a one-year issue. This is going to play out over the next several.
Yeah, and then you look at how things might have played out this year and the season we had, which was incredible. I just don't think we're going to get that again this time around because you look at some of the decisions that the stars of the game have to make here. I know at times, I mean, personally, I think that a lot of these teams are built maybe not with their senior classes, but they have the senior star, which has enabled them to be the top 10, top 5 teams in the country. So I think seeing how much things are going to change depending on those decisions from those seniors. You've already seen it come down with Granay Menu. He had his own unique situation. He already played 5 years and didn't want to come back for a 6th because he was, he had run his course. I understand that completely. But some of these other situations, I think, are going to be interesting to watch and see how it impacts the lands going into some of these top tier teams going into next year, too.
Well, when you look at Michael Sowers at Princeton, that was one of the other big dominoes. He has withdrawn from school as reported by the Athletic. So he's going to come back to Princeton next year. I think that was one of the big dominoes to fall. So that helps Princeton big time. The big one, I think, the two other big ones are Yale and Cornell that we haven't learned of, because Penn State was obviously a big one with Grant Amen. Yale with TD Erlin, along with the offensive talent they have that are seniors, that really impacts what that team's going to be moving forward. And then the other big one is Cornell, Jeff Teat. And you've mentioned it. He's not only thought of as a great field lacrosse player, but he's looking at indoor lacrosse, maybe the number one pick in the NLL draft. So he's got to figure out what he is going to do. And then the Ivy League altogether is going to have to figure out what they're going to do, because they don't normally allow for fifth-year grad students to play sports. So people are waiting for that waiver to come down. And Michael Sowers, in his case, he just didn't even wait. He withdrew from class in order to come back next spring and play. So a lot of different question marks still at play. But for those schools in particular, the question marks, if they're answered, are really going to determine what they are next year.
Yeah, absolutely. You can say the same thing on the women's side as well. I mean, you look at just for one example, Stony Brook, and hearing that people like Taryn O'Miller and Allie Kennedy are saying they're going to be back. The difference it makes for that program, which looked like it was ready to apex this year. So I think you're looking at definitely case by case situations and complicated and difficult discussions and decisions that are going to be made depending on what these kids want to do after college. You mentioned Jeff Teat and his pro prospects, and you think of grad school, or if these kids even can take more classes, or how that all works, and if they don't have a full scholarship, how their college loans, when those set in, depending on the amount of credits you take, and if they have any more credit to take at that college. So a lot of decisions to be made, but at the end of the day, it's nice they have the option. So I think it's an important thing we can take away here.
Yeah, one more note on the women's side. It's been reported now that Sammy Mueller and Kerrigan Miller have also entered their names into the transfer portal. So high-end All-American players went in the transfer portal. It doesn't mean they're guaranteed to transfer, but it does mean that there is the option that they could. So that this transfer portal and everything are going to play out. But you hit the nail on the head. The NCAA did the right thing. They're giving student athletes the option to make a decision for themselves. I think some schools and administrators may be upset with what the NCAA did, because it makes their life a little bit more difficult. But at the end of the day, the NCAA didn't feel like they had the right to say just no to everybody. So to be a case-by-case basis, and I think if you're a student athlete, it's kind of the best scenario you could have had.
Yeah, I mean, it's not ideal, but in this point, it's what you have to do. Yeah.
So we will continue to follow all the different news and notes around this and everything that's going to come of it on Lac Sports Network and the FTF Next app. You can, of course, watch Lacrosse Now every Thursday night, 9 p.m. Eastern. For now, he's Tom. I'm Travis. We'll see you later.